Hello everyone, my name is Olivia Adams and I'm an adaptive music educator, and I'm also the Director of Education at the Lotus Centre for Special Music Education in Ottawa. And so today, as part of our poster presentation, I'm going to talk you through a couple of activities that I do to help build fine motor skills in my piano students. So you see that I've got lots of toys here and games, and I try to use as many multimodal relations and multi-sensory relations in my music lessons, particularly for students that might be sensory seeking. You'll see that I've got therapy, different pom-poms, different textures, sounds, and tools that we can play with that also use our fine motor skills in music lessons. So I'm going to start with my handy dandy magnet board here. This is just a magnet board with a staff printed on it. This particular one's from Musical Escapades, but there are lots of ones out there. And I have a bin here, or a jar rather, of a bunch of different letters, numbers, sharps and flats, and different colors to use on the staff. I might ask my student to take out the notes for a D major scale. And so what they're doing is using that pincer grasp that is, again, working on those fine motor skills and the ability to move things into the hand and out, which really works those fine dexterous skills that we talked about in the first handout. So for example, they've pull out that D and then they can place it on the magnet board. So using these little round tools really helps to build those fine motor skills. I have a sharp, so I might just put that sharp on the F because I know that I'm going to need it, right? And so just having them reach into the jar and pull out with those fine motor skills the notes that they need. You can use color if you have students that aren't quite reading on the staff, and they can be using the piano keyboard. So you might say, can you put a pink magnet on all the C's that you see? And so then they can put a pink magnet on those C's. Another activity that I like to use to help build fine motor skills and music literacy at the same time is these little cardboard keyboards and some clothespins. So I made this for less than $5. I made about a dozen, and I just used cardboard and then a printout of piano keys, and I taped it to the cardboard. And then what I did is I took a pack of really colorful clothespins from the dollar store, and I labeled each of them with a letter name. And so I have the letter names for all of the major and minor five-finger scales, and enough that we could do it on all 12 pianos that I've created here. And so here I have the notes of a D major chord. So I might say, can you take your fingers and pin a D major chord with the clothespins? So then they're using that, again, that pincer grasp, and it's really strengthening in the hand. And clothespins are used quite a bit in occupational therapy when they're working on those fine motor skills. You can also have it between the thumb and the third finger, and even trickier, the thumb and the fourth finger. And so getting them to pin on that D major chord and using different fingers. And then you can do this with all sorts of scales. So it's building their music literacy while also working on those fine motor skills, and it's giving them a bit of a sensory break. So usually I will hold the keyboard and I'll have my students pin whatever we're working on that day. So if their scale of the week was a C major scale, then they might pin their C major scale and then their C major triad. And again, just for a couple of dollars at the dollar store. So another tool in my toolbox, which I'm sure many people have, I know all of my students have, are these little poppets. And I found these little poppets that are in, I like that they've got 2 rows of 5 because they're perfect for practicing with the 5 fingers, although we don't necessarily use the thumb. So what I'll do is I'll have my students line up their fingers on that poppet, and then I might say different finger number combinations. So 2, 4, 3, 5. And I love the poppets with these rows so that there's not a giant one, and that they can sort of really easily make that connection between the 5 fingers and then the 5 poppets. And they need to use a strong rounded finger to pop it down. If you try and use a flat finger, because of the rows, that poppet won't pop. And so it really helps to make that body to brain connection. Another tool in my toolbox are these simple toaster tongs. I just got these for $2 and I use them all sorts of ways in my music studio. So here are 2 ways that I use them to help build fine motor skills. I might take out my toaster tongs and have the student hold the toaster tongs between their thumb and the rest of their fingers, and then work on 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And that 5th one is really quite tricky, so I might flip it around. And if they need, and they don't have the grip strength yet to hold it gently in their hand, then I will hold it for them. But I like that they need to use low pressure, because if they use high pressure, it's going to flip. And so it's really getting them to work on those more refined fine motor skills. So I might call out, again, like the poppet activity, different finger number combinations and get them, and then also work on transfer. So when they're transferring between 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 1 and 4, 1 and 5. So it's working on transfer and shift of objects as well. Another way that I use these toaster tongs is I will get them to use, again, that pincer grasp motion to pick up pom-poms. So I'll pick up a pom-pom here and then place that pom-pom on a set of keys. So I might use this with my beginner students, for example. So say, take that pom-pom and can you place it on a C? And so it's also working on keyboard skills and keyboard geography while working on those fine motor skills. We know that there have been lots of studies that show that the use of chopsticks also helps to build fine motor skills and dexterity. Of course, that makes sense. And it can be really beneficial, particularly for pianists. So I don't just let them do it with their dominant hand. Of course, in piano, we play with both hands if that's available to us. And so I'll make them use their non-dominant hand and pick up another pom-pom and maybe place it on a different letter name. So again, this is working on keyboard geography and music literacy while also helping build those fine motor skills in a fun way. So another tool in my toolbox as a piano teacher is this bin here of Theraputty. Now, Theraputty is an occupational therapy tool, and they come in, it's this sort of clay-like material, and they come in different strengths. So you can get them in about 6 or 7 different strengths. One fun activity that you can do is hide some small beads in that Theraputty and then get students to pull out the beads using their fine motor skills. I might do this activity while I'm talking with a parent and explaining an activity or explaining things that they need to practice that week, or we're just having a discussion about something related to the piano lesson. I might set the child up at my table in the studio and have them pull out these little treasures using their fine motor skills here. Now, because these come in different strengths, based on the student's fine motor skills, I might suggest or use different strengths. If I'm finding that the Theraputty is too difficult for them, I will often use Play-Doh as well. And this is a much cheaper option than using Theraputty, but of course we can't get them at different strengths. So there are many activities that you can look up to use the Theraputty in lessons, or just to help build the fine motor skills. So I'm just gonna break off a piece of Theraputty here. This one's nice and stringy. And I might get a student to use their fine motor and just roll it that roll that into a ball using their non-dominant hand. And so see if they can roll it into a ball, because what it's doing, it's building up the strength in the hand, and it's getting them to use all of their fingers to work together to accomplish that task, right? So they might roll into a ball. And then I might say, can you squish it with fingers 1 and 2? Can you squish it again with fingers 1 and 3? And so again, they're practicing that transfer, and they're also practicing that strength and dexterity. Oh, finger 4 is really tricky. Could we try that one again? And so they're using their whole hand. And really, after a while, you do start to feel it in the hand. But this is one activity that allows for a sensory break while they're in lessons. And it also helps them to work on strengthening those fingers and really practicing that rounded hand position, that rounded finger, and working on their grip and strength. Another activity that I might use the Play-Doh for, because this spreads easier, is I take a baking sheet and I'll spread Play-Doh out, roll it out flat. But I'm just going to demonstrate with the Play-Doh in the tub. So I get them to practice their dynamics in the Play-Doh. So I might say, how much strength do we need to play piano? How much strength do we need to play forte? And so they might use a deeper indent, and then they can see, oh, I need less strength for piano and I need more strength for forte. And so they can practice their dynamics. Another thing I might do is play a game called Flashy Fingers. This was created by Anne Crosby Godet of the Musical Discoveries website and blog, and all of her amazing resources over there. But we play Flashy Fingers in Play-Doh. So again, that Play-Doh is rolled out on a baking sheet, and I have their hands laying flat, just so that they can practice the dexterity. They're not necessarily practicing the hand position, but they're practicing moving their fingers independently as I call them out. And they're in the Play-Doh. So again, it's providing that sensory feedback, that tactile approach. And this is particularly great for our students that are sensory seeking. So these are just a couple of the activities that I use to help build fine motor skills in my piano students. Again, all of these were influenced by my wonderful colleague, Nicole Lemire, who's an occupational therapist working with kids, specializing in pediatric occupational therapy, and ways that we can incorporate these activities that she does with students every day into music lessons and giving them a musical approach.